In this video, we're going to discuss the relational model, which is the formal model that underlies most modern database systems. At the heart of the relational model is the notion of a table. When you build a database, you're building a collection of tables. Each table looks something like what you see here. We've used a table to capture information about students. Every row in the table holds information that describes either a single entity, so in this case it's a single student, but it could be some other type of person, place, or thing. Or we can also use a row to capture a relationship between two or more entities, and we'll see more about that soon. And then every column represents one attribute of each entity. So in this case I'm highlighting a name column where we store the student name, but we also have ones for the student's physical address, email address, and ID number. Now, in addition to the terms table, row, and column, there is a second set of more mathematical terms that we also use. So another name for a table is a relation, and that's where the name relational model comes from. Another name for a row is a tuple. Another name for a column is an attribute. And we will use these two sets of terms interchangeably. Now, when it comes to requirements for a relation, every column in a given table must have a unique name. The values in a given column must be of the same type. The mathematical way of saying that is they must come from the same domain. So for example, you might say that a student name can be no more than 100 characters long. Each cell in a table must contain a single value. So what I've done here, where I have a column called phones, where I can put an arbitrary number of phone numbers for a given student, that's not allowed in the relational model. If you wanted to be able to have multiple phone numbers for a given student, you would either need to do separate columns, so one for the first phone number, one for the second phone number, etc., or there's an alternative approach that we'll learn about later in the semester. But you cannot have what's called a multi-valued attribute, which is what you see here, because I'm trying to store more than one value in the same cell, and that's not allowed. No two rows can be identical in a given table. That's referred to as having duplicate rows, and the relational model doesn't allow that. Now, when it comes to describing a relation, we specify what's known as its schema, and that consists of the name of the relation, the names of its attributes, and in some cases we also include the possible values, the domains of each attribute. So for example, if we go back to our student table, if the name of that is student, then the schema begins with that table name, and then in parentheses we put the names of the columns going from left to right and separated by commas. So we start with ID, then name, etc. until we reach the last column, which is email, and we close the parentheses. And that is the schema of this table.